Congratulations, lovely reader. You've discovered the Dark and Stormy Book Club podcast. This is Janelle Patrick, the author of The Last Tea Bowl Thief, wishing you happy listening and happy reading.
Hello, and welcome to episode 215 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we visit with one of our patrons, Art Kilmer. Enjoy. I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
We are very pleased to welcome to the program one of our patrons, Art Kilmer. He runs the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast as well as the Cozy Christmas podcast. Welcome, Art.
Well, thank you so much. I was telling my family tonight that I was really excited about this because you're one of my all-time favorite podcasts. So,
oh gosh, geez.
I'm not saying that just because I'm on. I've really been looking forward to this. So thank you for having me on.
First of all, I would like to say that this is a new series that we have started, that we are featuring our patrons, and Art's one of our oldest patrons.
Not chronologically.
Our most loyal.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
And we want to know what our patrons are interested in.
I am honored to be on to talk about what I've been reading lately. And I've told you before that it's thanks to this podcast, my TBR list, there's no end in sight to it now. So thanks, ladies. I'll be reading in my casket someday.
Yes, you and us as well.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about my reading taste. I like mysteries as well as science fiction and classics, kind of a wider range of things. And my podcast covers a lot of different genres, but mystery is definitely a strong component to it. Even on my logo, you can see I have a guy holding a magnifying glass. But what I've been reading lately have been a lot of psychological thriller type novels. So I thought I'd bring a couple of those to share and talk about tonight. Then for a completely different side of the spectrum, I have a cozy mystery series I want to recommend as well. You really get the whole gamut of books tonight.
You have the floor, so.
All right. The first one is called The Dime by Kathleen Kent. I read this one as a part of you had released in your newsletter a mystery reading prompt for the year. There's 52 prompts. So I thought, I'm going to try to read through these, see what I can come across. So again, thanks for that prompt because it's helped me get through my list. It was for the LGBTQ reading prompt. Again, it's called The Dime by Kathleen Kent. And it tells the story of Detective Betty Rizek. She was a cop in New York City, and a traumatic event happened to her while on duty. And then also along that time, I think it was her uncle, who she was very close to, passed away. So she and her girlfriend moved from the Big Apple to Dallas, Texas. And that's where the story is taking place, is in the police department in Dallas, Texas. On the back of the book, it says that when she gets there, she runs into, as far as being on duty, she has to deal with Mexican drug cartels and cult leaders, deadbeats, skells, and society wives all battle for sun-baked turf. Betty is as tough as the best of them, but she's deeply shaken when her first investigation goes sideways. And boy, does it go sideways. There's this big dramatic shootout between police and the drug people they're chasing down. So all of this is kind of spun out while she's dealing with things that have happened in her past, as well as her relationship with her girlfriend is starting to get a bit strained. And then about halfway through the book, there's this kind of twist in the plot that takes it in a completely different direction than I was expecting. I guess mild spoiler for this part. It's not really that big of a spoiler, but she gets captured by a cult group. big portion of this book is her being held captive by them and trying to escape and figure out the murder has happened. There's just a lot going on in this book. She's a tough as nails detective, as you can imagine, which I thought was really refreshing to have a female in that role. Typically, you see the guy detective who's, grizzled and bitter at the world and all that. I think it's neat that she's writing this for a female character that I think would connect with a lot of female readers. She's not just a token character. She's got layers. She's complex. There are more parts of her that are going to be explored, I think, in other books because this is a series. I can't wait to read where this series is going to go. This one is light on the whodunit part. Like I said, I think the bigger push of this novel is just watching her go through all these experiences and challenges and overcoming them and how she does that. And it was really just one of the best books I've read all year.
Oh, wow.
I'm really looking forward to reading more in this series.
I am not familiar with Kathleen. When did this book come out?
This one came out in 2017.
Who published it?
Mulholland Books. There's 3 books in the series right now. I mean, it's violent, at times a little on the gory side, not super gory, but if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, just be aware of that. I never would have come across that book if I hadn't been looking for something that fit that prompt. This year, I challenged myself to try to really focus on expanding my reading diversity. I've been keeping track of what I read, and it's all coming down to the same kind of author, and I thought, well, I need to read more written by women, more written by people of other lifestyles that's different than mine, and I've really enjoyed that process. And so this is one book I came across thanks to your reading prompts too. So that's one I'd recommend.
But I have to say, that's wonderful. When we put things like that in the newsletter, we don't know who's following it or not. And just to know that somebody actually did it is wonderful.
I'm keeping pace so far, trying to do 1 prompt a week or so. I'm a little bit ahead right now, I think. It's going to get busy this summer, so I expect I'll get behind. I love a reading prompt. I've really come to enjoy that. Honestly, I was surprised you have 52 down, and wow, these ladies know how to read. I mean, they're going to take us on a great trip through some great books this year.
I saw the idea in another article I was reading, and I kind of adapted it to us. I appreciate that you ran with it.
Yeah, we're doing a reading prompt on my Christmas podcast, but I only have 12 prompts on there, and they're influenced by different Christmas movies. And then you have to go and try to find a book to match a theme. And I figured 1 book a month. I've got some folks reading with me throughout the year, and it's been a blast.
One year I had done a reading prompt that I saw, I think it was off of Pinterest. I think it was 100 books in a year. And it didn't give any suggestions, but said like, read a trilogy or read a book that your mother recommended. So I challenged myself and I was able to do those 100 prompts, but it was satisfying. It was kind of hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
So-
they can be. All 4 books I'll talk about tonight have really fascinating female main characters. It just kind of worked out that way when you try to start reading more diversely. These are the treasures I'm finding. This one's called A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This one is a debut novel that came out, I think, last year. Again, it's more of a psychological thriller mystery. It tells the story of Chloe Davis, who, during when she was a young girl, her father was arrested as a serial killer. This is pretty dark. He had killed, I think it was like 5 or 6 young girls in the area. So he gets arrested for it. Now, 20 years later, she's a psychologist and she's trying to turn her tragedy into something positive by helping other people. But then murders start happening again that follow the exact same pattern that they did 20 years ago. She's dealing with her own paranoia and mental breakdown, and it's all about her trying to solve this mystery. Who's doing the kidnapping and murders again in the exact same way her father, who's currently in jail, did? Nobody believes her. And so it's all about believing a woman's story kind of thing. And she's not even sure half the time what's real and what isn't. I love the paranoia that this book created in me as I was reading it. Can I even believe what she's saying or what she's seeing? Because she's struggling with that same thing. And this one does have a stronger whodunit element to it than the first one. It kept me guessing for the most part. So there is a plot twist in this one as well, which I love a plot twist. And I did kind of suspect what the twist was. but I think it was more of a lucky guess than anything. As much as I love mysteries, I don't usually try to figure it out before the detective. I'm just along for the ride, but I like watching it revealed and all that. It's just very satisfying. I did see the twist coming a little bit, but it was still very satisfying and a very good story. It also has, I thought, one of the best openings to a mystery book that I've read, at least in a long time. There's like a prologue, and it's just her talking about the darkness and being hunted. A little bit of a backstory. I had been reading some old classic stories and talking about things on my podcast about how women writers back in the 1800s and early 1900s would write their stories. But what they were doing was exploring their fear of things such as their fear of being married to the wrong person, their fear of childbirth, and they would put those fears into a story aspect to just try to explore that. This prologue really resonated with me on that topic too. She's writing about her fear of being watched and being hunted as a woman. I felt a little sad because it's like maybe some things just haven't changed in our society, but it was such a powerful opening to the story that it just hooked me from that first sentence. Like I said, this was a debut novel, and I cannot wait to see what she writes next.
What year did that come out?
It was last year or maybe 2 years ago, but I'm pretty sure it was last year.
Well, that sounds really good.
It does.
It does.
Third one, we just keep going to these dark places, but there's some coziness at the end of this, so don't worry. This one is called Unmissing by Minka Kent. This one came out just within the last year or so, late 2021, early 2022, that time frame. I spent at least 2 nights late into the night reading, trying to get through this book because it was so compelling. Imagine that you have married this man who was a young widower. His first wife disappeared and died about 10 years ago. So one dark and stormy night, she gets a knock on the door that the second wife does, and it's her husband's first wife alive. The story then is what happened to her, why was she gone for 10 years, and what's going to happen next. Each chapter changes perspectives from the current wife, I think her name was Merritt, to the first wife, her name was Lydia, and then Luca is the husband. That's a shock that, hey, my wife who disappeared 10 years ago and we declared dead, she's actually alive. And he remarried, he moved on, they have a child, another one is on the way. And then each chapter alternates perspectives from Lydia and Merritt. If you like a book with an unreliable narrator, this will be right up your alley. In Merritt's chapter, she'll do something for Lydia that she thinks is kind or nice or trying to help her, trying to figure out what happened. But then Lydia's perspective on that, she views Merritt as kind of an intruder at times. They're not seeing things the same way. So you're trying to determine, okay, is this what's actually happening? Is her perspective right? What's going on? This book was just so good as the mystery is becoming revealed throughout the book. And about halfway through or so, you get hit with a big plot twist. And then following that, there's another big plot twist. Like, okay, this is bonkers. I'm just here for the ride now. I can't really even say what happens. It would give away too much. And I don't want to do that because it's a joyride for sure.
That sounds like a real good one.
Art,
Yeah.
we have switched places. Now you're making our to-read list.
Oh, I know.
Excellent. Well, I heard about this book on another book podcast I was listening to, and I thought, wow, that sounds good. My library had a copy of it, and I got the audiobook version of that, which was a really good reader as well. So I'd recommend the audiobook on that. It was so compelling. I had a couple of sleepless nights. I really enjoyed it.
I'm wondering how long the unreliable narrator is going to be popular. It's took off, but it seemed like everybody jumped on that bandwagon. They do definitely keep you wondering.
And I haven't really read a lot of those. Somebody who's read a lot of them can see these things coming a mile away. And, I don't know.
Not necessarily, because since they're unreliable,
Designed to keep you guessing.
I enjoy them.
Yeah, me too. I'll vary my mystery reading between like a thriller or a police procedural or classic whodunit, that kind of thing. For whatever reason, I just got on a thriller kick lately. I've read almost these 3 books all within the space of about 2 or 3 weeks here recently. So I ended up thinking, oh man, my mind is in a dark place right now. But fortunately, I've got a good cozy mystery series to recommend to kind of cleanse the palate if you need it. After all this terror and trauma, I needed a palate cleanser. So we're going to go to the cozy mystery section now. And Kensington had reached out to me with a couple of authors they were looking to help get the word out. So one of them is an author named Darcy Hannah. She writes the Beacon Bake Shop mystery series, and it takes place in Michigan in a lighthouse that the main character has turned into a bakery. So as far as cozy vibes go, this series has it in spades. It's great. The Beacon Bake Shop mystery series, there's 3 books in the series. The third one is coming out this summer. Got an advanced reader's copy, and I'm about right in the middle of that one. It's just great. The setup is that a lady named Lindsay Bakewell, a nice pun for the last name. I love cozies when they go the pun route. I love it. She catches her fiance, who's a celebrity chef, in an affair. And so she breaks out off with him immediately. She goes out and gets drunk. That night, she ends up buying a lighthouse online.
As you will.
She was someone who worked in Wall Street. So she was good with money. She was rich. She had the money to spend it all on this lighthouse. The next day when she sobers up and realizes what she's done, she decides, well, why not? I'm just going to move there. And the dream job I've always wanted to do, which was to be a baker in a bakery. So she moves to this little town called Beacon Harbor, Michigan, and moves into this lighthouse. She has an attractive next door neighbor who is also an ex-military personnel. Can't remember which branch he was, but I think he was like a Navy SEAL or something like that. So she doesn't fall in love with the local detective, but he's used to the kind of mystery investigation type lifestyle. So I thought that passed. She also has a delightful pet dog named Welly. He is very excited that his owner owns a bakery and he gets to sample some of the doggy treats that they make. And she has a friend who comes and visits her off and on from New York City. She's like a social media type person. And then just a bunch of quirky characters that live in the town of Beacon Harbor. In the first book, Murder at the Beacon Bake Shop, that was published by Kensington in, I think, February 2021. That, and then there's a Christmas one is the second book, and that came out that fall, I believe. So these both came out last year or within the last 2 years. She moves into this lighthouse. She gets it renovated for being a bakery. Everything's set up and ready to go. And then, of course, on opening day, as you would expect in a cozy mystery, there's a dead body in her bakery. The part that really compelled me, I thought that was interesting. It wasn't just any dead person. It was her ex-fiance's current girlfriend who ends up dead. Of course, all the suspicion and everything lands on her. And so she has to try to clear her name. She thinks this is going to be a disaster for my bakery. You know, it's just opening and now there's this murder that's happened and all that. It follows your typical cozy mystery for the most part, but it was just an enjoyable read. I thought the mystery and the resolution was good. The author, she's not doing a paint by numbers here. She's really put a lot of thought into making the characters interesting and unique. Cozy mysteries are like the Hallmark Christmas movies for the most part. You know what you're going to get when you start one. And you know, there's some of that, but I think she takes some great directions in it. One that I really enjoyed is that she didn't have the murder happen right away, like within the first couple of chapters. I think at least in one of them, the murder didn't even happen until about page 50 or so. I think it was probably the first one because there's a lot of setup and everything. But I liked that it gave the characters a chance to breathe, as it were, and just you get to know them outside of this mystery setting. So then when the mystery and the murder actually happens, I felt a little more emotionally invested in the characters just because we've had a few extra chapters just to get to know them. It certainly wasn't boring either. You know, I forgot, at least I was like, oh wait, this is a mystery. There's a dead body coming. Yeah, okay. But it was great and a good resolution. One of the things that I enjoy about this series too is that there's just the smallest touch of magic to it. Supernatural, I guess, would be another way to put it, because the lighthouse she moves into is possibly haunted by the original owner of it from 100 plus years ago. He was an old sea captain and he died under mysterious circumstances, and he's said to be haunting the lighthouse. So he makes a few appearances, but it's not like he's a talking character or he interacts in any way. Just like a presence that she feels sometimes, and then sometimes she'll smell like pipe smoke, which he was known for. The town story is that if you see a mysterious light in the lighthouse, that's the captain warning somebody in town that something bad is about to happen. Sure enough, the night before her bakery opens, they see the mysterious lights in the lighthouse. And then the next day, there's the dead body. So it's not overdone. It's just the lightest of touches of mystery, really. And you just kind of roll with it, and it's great. And then book 2 is called Murder at the Christmas Cookie Bake Off. I like this one even better than the first one. And it could be because of the Christmas angle, because I'm a huge Christmas nut. It was really good. Again, the main character is settling into her job and her role as the town baker. And some of the community want to have a Christmas cookie bake-off competition. And she feels like it's unfair for her to compete because she's a professional baker. A bunch of the businesses in town actually buy cookies from her and then enter them into the contest.
Oh, sneaky.
There's just a lot of fun holiday things that happen. Sometimes in the Christmas community, we have these arguments about whether a story or a movie is a Christmas movie or a Christmas book, or is it just set at Christmas? There's a difference there. And this one, I think, really hits both, that it is set at Christmas time, but there's a lot of Christmas elements to it. So if you like that kind of thing, this will hit on all those levels you like.
Does she include recipes?
Yes, she does. And in the name of research, I was able to do a couple of the recipes, and really good recipes, especially in the first book. There's one called Cherry Chocolate Chunk Cookies. And they are
I'm sold.
Good. Yep, they are very good. They're made with oatmeal. They have a real heartiness to them, and they're much better fresh out of the oven, you know, when they're still kind of warm and crumbly. And oh man, they are so good.
Every cookie is better than that.
Right. But they do reheat in the microwave pretty nicely. I've actually interviewed her twice this month, believe it or not. I interviewed her, one for the bookshelf Odyssey, and then because she wrote a Christmas book, I interviewed her for the Cozy Christmas podcast. She's such a delightful person. Our interview, both of them ended up being over an hour long. So I've got to do some editing, I think. If you're ever looking for a guest, reach out to her. She's a great guest. She will talk about anything or write you up something, I'm sure. I've really enjoyed just getting to know her. And I'm really grateful for Kensington for finding me and offering to send me a book to read. It turned out to be, I think, one of my favorite cozy mystery series so far that I've read. I started, like I said, the third one this past week, and I've been reading it. Been real busy the last couple of weeks. And so it's just nice to sit down and grab this book. And it's just a comfort read. I ended up falling asleep after a chapter, not because it's boring, but it's just a cozy atmosphere that I really enjoy in a book. As much as I also like the tense psychological dramas and thrillers I read as well, this one really hits that cozy feel that I like in a book as well. Third one is out in, looks like July, and I really recommend that one. That's the books I brought. Like you said, turnaround is fair play here. I'm going to add to your TBR list.
Well, that book sounds like a lot of fun. I need a good palate cleanser every once in a while. I'm not a real huge cozy, but when I do go down that dark rabbit hole, every once in a while, I've got to lighten things up a bit.
Absolutely. And these will do it. Your listeners know what to expect in a cozy, you know, nothing too violent, nothing too gory, or even really too tense, to be honest. It's pretty laid back, but it just sounds like a great place to live. She said it's not a real town, but she based it on a real town. And talking with her, it sounds like there's a lot of elements, things that have happened to her and different things that she weaves into the stories. I think it really shows that there's just a sense of authenticity to it as well. That's what I've been reading lately.
Well, you keep just as busy reading as Anne does, it sounds like.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you sleep?
Sometimes, actually, I've been struggling with insomnia lately. It could be because of what I've been reading. I always say that once in a while I will struggle with insomnia, but then I think, well, it'll do wonders for my reading life.
Well, Art, we thank you so much for believing in us and following us. And we are huge fans of your podcast as well. I love the Christmas one, especially when your daughter is on. What a delight.
Oh, definitely.
We tease that she's the popular of the two hosts. So she doesn't always want to be on, and I don't want to force her. And then sometimes she'll want to be on, and I think, oh, it's going to be a while yet. I haven't got time to figure something out.
Well, tell her there's 3 ladies who absolutely think she is a doll.
She just turned 13 yesterday. So I'm.
Oh, well, happy birthday. Teenage years. Oh, boy, you're in for it.
She's our youngest, so she's the last one to turn a teenager. It was an emotional day for sure. Be sure to tell her that. So we'll have to have her back on now for sure.
Yep.
Oh, definitely.
What's coming up for Art on his shows?
On the Cozy Christmas podcast, I'm currently reading a 3-part story called The Burglar and the Blizzard. It meets one of our reading prompts, and this is an old story from the early 1900s. And I thought it was really amusing. It's a story about a wealthy bachelor who comes home and finds his home in the process of being robbed. he catches the guy red-handed, basically. And so this guy tries to talk his way out of it, ends up sending him after his sister, who he left alone in his cabin up in the mountains. And he wasn't even sure if this was a true story or not. He went up there, sure enough, found his sister, brings her back, and shenanigans ensue. It's been a really fun story. It's not really a mystery, though. It's more of a just kind of like a funny Hallmark kind of story. But so I'm reading that. We've been doing a book reading prompt on the Christmas podcast as well. So in May, we're going to be talking about cozy mysteries. So I'm going to have Darcy Hannah on one of the episodes there. And then for the Bookshelf Odyssey, I've got a couple of cozy mystery writers that I'll be interviewing. Got a science fiction writer. She's a relatively new writer. I'm also will be interviewing a lady here soon who wrote a children's book about Charles Dickens, but it explores racism against Jewish people at the time that even Dickens fell into. But it tells this true story of a young lady who wrote to Dickens telling him about why this is wrong to write like this about Jewish people. And he actually listens to her and changes his view on that. And this is a true story. And this author, she turned it into a children's book. It's unlike any children's book I've ever read. It has so much historical accuracy to it, and yet tells a very powerful message that everyone needs to hear about dealing with things like racism. But then it's all done in a children's book. It's incredible. So I'm really excited to have her on.
That sounds fascinating.
It really does.
The book is called Dear Mr. Dickens, and her name is Nancy Chernin. I was really excited. I heard about that book and looked at it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I just went online and found some contact information, and sure enough, she responded.
That's how you do it.
Yep. Well, and I have to thank you all for helping me with that, because I wanted to start interviewing authors and things. I remember I asked you on an email, how do you find your guests? And you basically told me, well, just find them online and ask them.
All they can tell you is no.
Yep.
And even when they tell you no, you just keep coming back. They'll eventually tell you.
Yeah.
And you said that Kensington had sent you a book, and we have found that they've been very generous in sending us advanced readers copies and getting us hooked up with authors as well. They're very supportive of the podcast community.
Mm-hmm.
Art,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, would you tell our listeners how to find you?
You can go to thebookshelfodyssey.com, and that'll send you to the podcast feed. I'm also on YouTube at Bookshelf Odyssey. The Bookshelf Odyssey is a video podcast as well as an audio one. I'm just kind of experimenting with that right now. So you can find bonus videos and different things on the YouTube channel as well.
Oh, you're braver than we are.
Yeah.
It's something I always had in the back of my mind. And then I had a guest on, is a poet. Her name was Sandrine Marwa. After we were done, she just said some very complimentary things to me and very encouraging things that encouraged me to just go ahead and try it. It was really nice of her. And she just kind of gave me that little push I needed. That was really sweet of her. But then my Christmas podcast is Cozy Christmas Podcast. And you can find that at my full website is cozychristmaspodcast.com. There's a few things there, but then if you just want the podcast, it's on that website as well, or you can go to cozychristmaspod.com. It'll just take you straight to the podcast feed itself. Google search those, I'll pop up near the top. They're not too hard to find. And I'm on social medias under those names as well. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm even trying TikTok a little bit.
Everybody's on TikTok.
Yeah, I just make little audio clips of the show and put them on TikTok.
Oh, that's a clever idea.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
We're learning things from you as well.
I like to either just use the logo or make a little design for that particular episode. And one of them only had 2 views, and then the next one had over 1,000 views. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what the difference was, but there you go.
Wow, good for you.
Our listeners, please know that Art will not be a stranger on this program. We absolutely adore him, and we look forward to him coming back.
All right. I look forward to that too.
It's been a pleasure talking with you, Art.
Yeah, you too. And like I said, and I mean it, this is one of my favorite podcasts. So I was really happy to be on. I enjoyed it very much.
Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening.
I sure will.
Thanks,
You
Art.
too. Yep. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Trivia. Last week's question was, author Graham Greene appeared in what movie? A. Day for Night, B. Titanic, C. Giant, D. Splendor in the Grass. The answer is A. Day for Night. In 1973, he had an uncredited cameo appearance as an insurance company representative in the Francois Truffaut's film, Day for Night. This week's question is, Cornell Woolrich wrote the book It Had to Be Murder. That book was the basis for what movie? A. Dial M for Murder, B. The Manchurian Candidate, C. Rear Window, or D. Vertigo. Good luck. Well, that wraps up another episode of Dark and Stormy Book Club. We thank you for listening, and we thank Art for joining us. We look forward to next week. And remember,
Life would be boring without a little mystery. Bye.